To make concern, it's a cool podcast. Listen with your friends or listen with your dog, man. Subscribe today or I'll be in your closet. To make concern, that's a really cool podcast. Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of To Make Concern. We are back with another episode for y'all. My name is Will. He is Steven. Introduce yourself, good sir.
My name is Steven, also known as the consumer of cough drops.
Yes, he's taking on my role. For the past few episodes, I've been coughing a little bit and then taking cough drops, but now he is taking on that role. We decided to switch it up.
Yeah, I thought Will was spending too much time in the spotlight, so...
too much time in the cough drop spotlight.
Yeah. So I had to go and give myself a cough just for this very purpose.
Yes. I still have the bag of cough drops. There's so many in this one.
Yeah, you got one of like the huge bags. I got like this tiny pack.
160 of these.
You want to know how much this like tiny rectangle pack has in it? It has 9. I actually got 2 of them, so I had 18, but still 18 compared to 160.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, that's actually my second bag. The first bag I had wasn't nearly as big. It had like a 40 something, but it wasn't enough. I had to get another thing. I decided to get it in bigger bulk. I decided the first bag was Steven's size, and I was like, you know what? How about I get it in Will's size to get more of it?
See, like, who needs to make fun of Will when he just does all the work himself?
Yeah, you know what? Although I will say 160 may not be enough of a visual comparison to show how big I went from 40 to this. But I digress. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. If you've never seen the show before, this is where I deliver topics to Steven that he will respond to. And we are just here. We're just so happy to give y'all content. We're always thinking about y'all. Well, I'm always thinking about y'all because y'all
every day of the
Steven,
week.
Steven, on the other hand, he has gone on record talking about how he does not think about his fans at all. So
well, I think about my fans, all one of them.
So that means I'm the better half of this duo. I also edit the videos, I upload them, and I give them the title, and I do all of that, so that also kind of contributes, but if none of that mattered, then the fact that I think of y'all, and he doesn't, it's just proof.
Okay, so like, my job, my role in this, I was gonna say relationship, but that sounds wrong, this partnership.
This partnership, yeah, say that.
Yeah, my role in this partnership is to provide content, right? I am here for content, and then everything else, that's kind of not my problem. Like, you know, Will's probably got that covered.
Your role is to be someone who, like, so that the channel isn't just about me. I already have a channel that's just me. And it's actually a new channel. If you want to go check it out, check out the description.
Yeah, the parodied version of that one guy that makes videos about the NFL.
I also do legitimate commentary, too. I don't just rip off one dude and his skit videos. I'm original.
I do also record the episodes, but, like, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, that is the other thing he does. He does record the videos. If it wasn't for him, only we would know about these conversations, and we wouldn't be able to put them out. So
we wouldn't be able to call it a podcast. It wouldn't be able to call it a podcast. It would just be 2 guys having a conversation.
Well, it wouldn't be a podcast. It just wouldn't be a public one.
I guess that's true.
All right. Being a podcast, let's be a podcast, and let's talk about something.
Yeah, let's talk about something.
All right, first topic I want to talk about is so on this podcast, I like to complain. And one thing I love to complain about is YouTube, because, you know, I go on YouTube every day, I consume content, I make content, you know, and YouTube Shorts are where I get a good bit of my entertainment from. Whenever I'm just bored throughout the day, I'll just casually go on there. You know, I personally like YouTube Shorts better than TikTok, because I feel like they have a slightly better algorithm, in my opinion. It's not perfect by any means, but I just found TikTok's algorithm to be like way too vague. And like also like if you found something vaguely interesting, it will show you nothing but that. Even when you're like, I want to see other stuff, please. YouTube, I feel like this is a while ago. I stopped using TikTok. Maybe they updated it, and maybe other people had other experiences. But it's just like for me, I don't know what it is. I just found TikTok to just be not that good to me. But YouTube Shorts, it's like. And also, I just use YouTube to watch other videos too. But all right, but I will say one thing I'm coming across a lot in YouTube Shorts, and maybe this is a thing on TikTok as well. But there are some music artists, like, and this is specific, particularly a lot of them are like up and coming music artists. They will, if they have a song that's like going viral, and like a lot of people are making TikToks or like YouTube Shorts with their content, then the music artists, they will repost that content that had their music, but it'll be on their accounts, and like it's always one song, but it's like a bunch of shorts that they take from other people. A lot of them don't even credit. There's one in particular that I'm gonna call out now, and that's this dude named NXCRE, not no Cree. I don't know how you say it, but he has a song with I think his band called The Villains or something, and it's like a song where like the main like build up part of it is just like drums going on, and he just goes on the mic and it's just like, Lord forgive me, yeah. And it's supposed to be like a cinematic, like dramatic song that goes over like epic stuff, like epic cinematic moments or wherever. It can also be used for anything. It's one of those songs where it's just kind of used for anything as like background noise. But I've gotten that type of short with that song from the account, from the official music account of NXCRE, so many times that I'm just sick to death of it. Like when I first heard the song, I thought it was okay, and like I even added it to my playlist. But like now I'm at a point where I never want to hear it again. Like if I hear it, I swipe. I start swiping. Like I just don't want to hear it no more. And this guy is not the only one doing it. Jason Derulo, he's also a guy who is doing this. But to be fair to him, at least he's tagging the other person. With other people, like this is a dude named Baby Kia. He's like I forgot. He's a rapper from somewhere. I forgot exactly where he's from, but like he's one of those like aggressive rappers, and it's almost comical how like aggressive and like violent he is. There's a song he has called "Let's Play a Game," where like I'm gonna. It's been a while since I've heard it, but I'm gonna just rap it. Let's play a little game I made. All you gotta do is pick a candy bar. One guy played. If you pick the wrong one, I swear to God, burst on you. If you pick up the other one, I'm gonna shoot. That's literally how the song sounds and how he raps. And there's several reposts from his official account of just shorts, parodying it, like making skits out of it, whatever. And it's just like, I don't know how I feel about that, especially when they're not crediting who made the short initially. Like, how do you feel about that, Steven?
I don't know. I feel like it's always important to like give credit to like reusing other people's content is fine, but you always want to give credit to them when you do that.
Yeah, it's like, and Jason Derulo, from what I've seen, he usually goes the extra mile of even like hashtagging like got permission to like upload, as if to say he went to the original person who like uploaded it and like DM'd him. Whether he actually does that or not, I'm not entirely sure. But like the fact that he even puts that up while others don't, it's just kind of like there's some who will not only not credit, they're just like repost it on their account, and it's just like they're taking all the streams from that, all the like plays off of that. And I don't know, it's just, to me, it just like, yeah, you made the song that goes with the video, but like that's still their video. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just something I find a little weird. I don't know. It might just be me. I know this one wasn't really a Steven built topic. I just wanted to talk about it because
there is another thing with YouTube that I've been like becoming more and more annoyed with recently. And that is the way that the comments work, specifically on the mobile app. I don't know if it's the same way on like the desktop or like the website, but on the mobile app, like, so you have the button below the video to open the comments, and the button will like preview one of the comments, but what it does is like as the video plays, it like scrolls through the comments. But sometimes
I noticed that.
Yeah, but sometimes a comment like the whole comment won't fit in the button, so it like has the dot at the end and gets cut off. The thing that's annoying about it is if you see a comment that like looks interesting but like it's not like you can't see the full comment and you want to like read the whole comment, you click on the comment button, it doesn't scroll you down to that actual comment.
And you can't find it. It's just not there anymore. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So like if it's a comment that's like down the list, like you open the comments section and like it doesn't take you to that comment. It just puts you at the top and you have to like scroll through and try to find it on your own. And it's super annoying.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, that's something I've also like seen, because it's just like, it's true. You'll see it. And another thing that I've found annoying about, which I've talked about before, when we talked about the Amazing Digital Circus, the first proper episode they released, I talked about how I got spoiled on like the big twist at the end because of the top comment. Like, despite the fact that I go in with like, I don't read comments as I'm watching, I had like no warning that comment was going to be there and that I was going to see it. And so when I come across the thing and they're like building up that something's not going to happen, and I'm just like, well, it's obviously going to happen because I got spoiled, and it just kind of ruined the experience for me. But that's only for content that's on YouTube that also acts as kind of like shows.
Yeah.
Or so.
That's why when I'm watching like my rule for when I'm watching any kind of like animated, like the animated series or just things that like have a story associated with them that I don't want to get spoiled, I always watch all of those in full screen. Just so it doesn't show the comments.
But it's a thing where it's like, even when I immediately click on it, like, yeah, I could theoretically click on it and immediately go to full screen, but then you also get those ads that are like in that aspect ratio where it's like an iPhone and it like scrolls all the way to the bottom, and it's like there's pop-ups that come up. That's getting super annoying, by the way. Like having to like get rid of the pop-ups, having the aspect ratio of the entire video change alongside it, like you think the skip button is going to be here, but all of a sudden it gets down there, or maybe it's all the way up here, and then you ended up clicking on something, it takes you somewhere else, so you got to get out of that, get back in there, and then
wait, no, I didn't mean to click on that.
Yeah, I hate that the most. The aspect ratio changing brings everything down with it. Like, so many ads are in that aspect ratio where it's here, when usually the video is like this, and it's like, I hate how it changes with ads specifically. Like, I'm fine with it happening with like other videos, like just to not like, if you don't want to watch it with those like bars at the end of like just black space, that's fine. But like with ads, I feel like you should just do that so it doesn't messes up your whole like user interface.
I feel like it has to do with the fact that more advertising companies are making ads that are like designed to work with the short form content, like Shorts and TikTok, which are in the phone aspect ratio, the portrait mode, and YouTube is just taking those like aspect ratio ads and putting them in regular videos.
Yeah, and it was like, you bring up that too, like there's even commercials that are going on TV that are being made in that portrait mode. It's just like, that's just kind of how it is now.
I don't even watch TV, and I've noticed that a couple times.
Yeah. But anyways, we were talking about online content being like shows, which perfectly transitions to our next topic. I had Steven watch this beforehand.
I had homework for this one, guys. That's how you know it's going to be a good one.
And it's probably in the title too, because it's the most relevant topic right now. Let's talk about that catching up pilot. Now, to give a little context to this, this is a YouTube pilot that is made by content critic. This is a commentary channel named Ellis Mark, and he is most well known for making videos where he criticizes and reviews shows and movies, mainly animated shows and movies. And he's well known for being a lot of his videos. He's very critical about cartoons and saying this show's written badly, this show's bad, they do this bad, that bad. He also does some oh yeah, that episode's good, that episode's bad. A lot of his content, he does these videos where he reviews an entire show, every episode, and they're hours long. And it's he goes through each episode, says this one's good, this one bad, it's good for this reason, it's bad for this reason. So I want to establish that before we get into this pilot, which he directed and wrote himself. He's the only credited writer for this pilot. So before we get into how I feel, I want to ask you, Steven, how did you feel about the pilot?
I mean, I thought it in terms of yeah.
Might need to take another cough drop.
Yeah. In terms of a quality animation, I mean, I think it was fine. I don't think it was I don't think it was noticeably bad. I think it was pretty average looking.
You're talking about the animation.
Yeah, just basically the general overall quality of the episode.
Right.
I think in terms of the story, this could just be me being a smooth brain and not being able to follow very well, but I couldn't really tell where the story was going. It kind of just felt it basically was just a day in the life of a high school teenager, kind of. And it was basically to give some context to the viewers, since we haven't brought it up yet, and to show Will that I did actually do my homework. Basically the entire episode was just this guy obviously hates school, and then he has this one really enthusiastic friend who's super innocent and clueless.
It's the classic character dynamic that's a good example is SpongeBob and Squidward. SpongeBob is optimistic and Squidward's very pessimistic. It's
or
that kind of duo.
Or Greg and Rowley from Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
That's another comparison that it fits very well, honestly.
Yeah, that's basically that character dynamic, and basically it was they get out of school and then they went to a club, and that's kind of it. That was the whole story. They got out of school and then they went to a club, and that was it. That was the episode.
They kind of spend time in the club, hijinks, and the entire episode could just be summed up in one sentence. These two high school friends, they go to a club, hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue, yeah. But I mean, there wasn't really any deep plot or story. It was kind of just it almost felt like a documentary almost.
Okay, so that's their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Let me go into how I felt. So animation wise, I will say, like you said, it's not bad. There are parts of this show where the way they draw it and the colors really pop in this one. That's something with Hell of a Boss, another popular online series. It's good animation wise, but when it comes to color and how the backgrounds and stuff kind of blend in with each other, especially with the earlier episodes, it's always just kind of solid just kind of solid and not really blending in with each other or like anything too dynamic. With this one, it definitely seems like it has a lot of dynamic like lighting. It has a lot of visually appealing like designs. Like the two main characters, they're drawn cutesy, whatever. Like, especially the little one who's like optimistic.
Yeah.
The voice acting was. Actually, let me get to the voice acting later. I will say with the animation, there are parts of it where, for the background characters, I don't know if they just didn't have the time or they didn't really care enough to like give them each individual like. It doesn't have to be anything complex. It's just like individual like character models. Like when it came to like showing like a large portion of a crowd or something, it's usually just like with like a vague gray mush that's supposed to represent like a crowd of people. And when you get close up, you see some of them look like they're not even finished. Like they're just drawn animatics that's just like not colored in, they don't move at all. So it's just like that's a weird thing I noticed. Like I don't know if they just ran out of time or if that was like an intentional thing. And like this kind of weirdness here it also resulted in kind of a joke that I found abstractly humorous when one of the main characters, I rewatched it. I still don't remember their names, so I'm just gonna refer to the two characters as SpongeBob and Squidward. Like the character dynamic of that.
Yeah.
So I'll just refer to them as that for right now until I actually learn the names. But where Squidward is trying to get through a crowd and he like breaks it apart like it like splits in half.
Yeah,
he walks through and
I noticed that.
Together. I saw that. I thought that was abstractly funny. And I don't think they even intended it to be that funny. But that was probably the biggest laugh that I got out of this. I only laughed, and let's talk about the humor. I only laughed 2 times. And they weren't even like big laughs or anything. They were just slight chuckles. Outside of that, I found this pilot to be very unfunny. I don't know. What did you think on that? Like the humor?
I don't know. Like I said, I just think like they didn't really try to crack too many jokes in it. I don't think. Like it just seemed
like there's a lot of moments where they're obviously setting up for a joke, but like there's no real big punchline to it. It's just kind of like it takes long for them. Like here's a good example. When they get to like the bouncer, and like the bouncer like beats up someone because they had a no shoes policy because it's.
I said no trainers.
Trainers, that's what they called it, which is funny because trainers, to my knowledge at least, refers to sweatpants.
I think it's a type. It's like a particular type of shoes.
I don't know. I've personally never heard, but that's not the point. So we see this guy get beat up, and then we see these two characters, and we see they obviously are not wearing shoes, but then they're looking at the bouncer, and it takes a long time of them just staring at each other, and him just like growling. And it takes a long time before it gets to the very obvious punchline of him just being like, "Okay, you're good to go in." And it's like, that's the thing. These jokes and punchlines could have worked if the timing was better. They just took too long on a lot of these jokes. And it's like they're all very obvious jokes that we see coming from a mile away. Like literally a mile away. It's just that's how long it feels. And it just baffles me how like Ellis Mark, the guy who made this and who wrote this episode, he is a critic of TV shows who has spent years criticizing other shows for how they are written and how they deliver comedy. And for him to make this and have this amateurish, I'm going to call it that. That's literally the only way I can use to describe it. This amateurish written like show in terms of comedy. And like you said, the story was basic, like super basic. They just went to a club, and it's like we see like generic stuff that goes wrong with people who are like in like out of their element, like in social situations. Like there's the guy who tries way too hard to fit in. There's the other guy who doesn't really want to be there, but he still tries to fit in and it goes wrong. Like you can just tell. Like from the moment I saw the setup, I was like, I already know beat for beat what's going to happen. And they met all of those beats perfectly. And by the end, I was just like, wow, that ended exactly how I expected it to. I didn't really laugh that much. There was no real jokes. There was a lot of moments where like they were setting up for something unexpected, hence the long pauses. But then it just gives you what you expected the reaction would be, and it's just like, why did you build it up for that? And it's like, here's the thing, I would not be this harsh on this if it wasn't for the fact that Ellis Mark, he criticizes and like critiques shows for a living. So he should have known a lot of these issues. This is the show that I feel like had he not made, he would have critiqued this and ripped it apart. So I'm just baffled by the lack of quality in this show. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to make it out to be like this pilot was entirely trash or entirely bad. Like, again, on technical level, it does look pretty good. Like, you could probably put it on TV and it would fit in okay-ish. Again, some of those background characters I feel like you'd have to actually work on and finish. There was a weird part in the end where like the Squidward character like kind of steps out of line and like he sees the entire club look at him, but it's just kind of like a gray mush. Like there's no faces drawn glaring at him. It's just a gray mush that is like shooting as like they're staring him down, but you don't see any faces. Like again, I do not know why that is the case. Like for like a general shot of like the background and they're just talking, that's fine. But when it comes to this, where you have to like actually get across the idea of him getting stared down by everyone in the room because of something embarrassing he did, I don't know why you're still staying with that generic gray mush that's usually done for like background scenes where that is meant in the background, not when they're in the foreground.
Yeah, especially when you consider like the ambiance of that particular scene, because like for most of the time the club is like intentionally kept kind of dark and it's like not well lit, and so for characters that are like, you know, they're in a crowd, they're in the background, they're not really important at that particular time, it makes sense for them to just like, you know, not be fully detailed because like they're kind of like back in the shadows. But then like once he gets called out, like everything just kind of stops and like all the lights come on. And like it would make sense at that point for like at least some of the crowd to like just like get revealed and just be staring at him, but they, like you said, they just don't. They just look exactly the same as they did before.
Yeah. And let me also talk about a little bit about the voice acting. When it comes to them delivering the lines, that's fine, whatever, no issue. The issue I have is actually with the voice of the SpongeBob character. Now, as you've said before, this is a show about high schoolers. However, when I first watched this, I got more the impression that they were like middle schoolers because of the fact that they had to take a bus to the club instead of just driving there, and because of the fact that SpongeBob character, he has a very like childish voice that feels like it's straight out of middle school. But then you got the Squidward character whose voice just sounds like a regular like 20-year-old, like someone in their mid-20s.
Yeah,
and it's like that juxtaposition of like those two voices. It's just like, I'm not even getting a strong feeling that they're high schoolers. Like the other people, like in the club, like, okay, sure, but like these two, I'm like having a hard time, especially with that SpongeBob character. Like and the fact that the school they're in is not very well developed because it's only on screen for the first minute of the show before they eventually Squidward goes to his house and then SpongeBob meets him there, and then from there, the rest of the show is usually the rest of the pilot takes place mostly on the bus getting to the club and then in the club. So it's like for a first pilot, this like it doesn't really like establish a lot about these characters. We know their tropes, we know what kind of characters they are, but we don't know anything about them outside of that. We just kind of see them like interact with this of the scenario of them going to a club, but we don't know anything about them. like outside of what we can obviously see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to take this segment to just rant about this because we are by no means the first ones to criticize this show. Because if you look up Catching Up, you'll see the pilot, and then you'll see other videos that are like critiquing the show as well. But what's weird is you go down to the Catching Up pilot comments. You go to the comments, and it's hard. Or at least back when I was first watched it a couple days ago, it was hard to find one comment that was critical, which makes me a little suspicious that something might be happening with like Ellis Mark like filtering comments. I'm not entirely sure if that's what he's doing, but it would not surprise me because even when I showed the comments by newest, it was hard for me. Like, I don't think I came across a comment that was negative. Meanwhile, all these videos of them critiquing the show exist. So I don't know, something fishy is going on with that. And if it is indeed the case that Ellis Mark is hiding comments that are critical of his show, like, is that not like the most hypocritical thing for someone to do?
Yeah, it would be pretty funny because
you critique all these shows. You critique all these shows, but when it comes to time for your show to get critiqued, you can't handle that.
Yeah,
like, I don't know. This is not a personal attack or personal accusation against Ellis Mark. I'm just saying that is what I am observing.
Yeah, like you've been pointing out this entire time, like Ellis Mark spends so much time critiquing other shows and talking about everything that's wrong with them, and then makes a show himself, like literally writes an entire show himself with no other writers involved that doesn't address any of the critiques that he made.
Right. So, and that's the thing about it. Like, I would have been a little lenient if there were other writers involved, but no, this is him. All these lines that are written and all of these steps, they are him that he's writing. So there's absolutely no excuse for, like, and I get it. Critiquing something and making something is not necessarily the same. There are a lot of factors that goes into making a show that is not purely story based. And when it comes to the animation, like a lot of the technical stuff, they checked off a lot of the technical boxes. But when it came to the story, I just don't think he really cared that much. And here's why. Here's why I don't think he actually cared about the story that much. If you go into the description and like the comments, like the top comment, you do not see a single description about what the show is about. You don't see a single one that's written out. Compare this to other shows we've talked about, like Murder Drone, Digital Circus, Hell of Boss. If you go to their pilots, you will go into the descriptions and you will see a written out like synopsis of what the show is. Meanwhile, with this, there is none. So that, to me, tells me that that story was secondary to him. And with this pilot, it very much showed. So I think that is what the thing is happening here. I think he cared more about getting the technicals right rather than getting the story right.
Yeah, I hadn't read the description when I watched the video. I just went and looked up now. And there's literally no description of the episode in the description.
There's no synopsis of it, of who these characters are and what their world is like. So I think that is very telling. I think that's very telling to me personally. And if you go to like any of the glitch shows, you'll see a synopsis, like in the pilot episode. So it's like that's just kind of what I observe. But yeah.
Also, the top comment, which I remember from when I first watched it, the top comment is, "If I had a nickel for every time Michael Kovac was in an indie show, I would have enough money to make one with him in it."
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. There's a lot of voice cameos. I think Michael Kovac, if I remember correctly, I think he's the Squidward character.
Yeah, he's the one that voices Jax in Digital Circus.
Yeah, and
that's the only other place I know him from.
His voice is so jarringly it's like you have one character that sounds too young, and you have another character that sounds too old. He all sounds too old. to be like a high schooler. Like it's believable. You can suspend your disbelief a little bit with him, but not with the SpongeBob character. He sounds like he should be elementary.
Yeah.
And one more thing I want to bring up too. So when I was watching this initially, for like the first 5 minutes, I was like, okay, this is not making me laugh, but you know what? I get the impression that this is just kind of a thing, like what the Odd Ones Out did with his show, Oddballs, where it's like he's making it more kid friendly. It's like this is a kid show he's making essentially, and it's just gonna be that's maybe why he's writing it this way. It's kind of more kid friendly. But then 5 minutes in, you get one of the characters say, "You're just mad because you ain't got no bitches." I'm like, well, that argument goes out the window because
not a kid friendly show anymore.
All of a sudden, this is an adult animated show, so no, he doesn't get those excuses either.
Or like at the very least, PG-13 or something.
Of this being a kid show. Nah, he ruined it with that. It's like, nope, this ain't made for kids at all. And the fact that it continued, those flaws I pointed out and that I found in the first 5 minutes continued throughout the episode. It was like, okay, yeah. And that was something a lot of people also pointed out too. I watched a couple of those videos that critique the show, and that was another point they also brought up of like there's a weird there's no good sense of what demographic Ellis Mark is going for. Like who's the show made for? Like
yeah,
that's the real question. Who is this outside of Ellis Mark's fan base? Who's gonna watch the show? Who's gonna I don't know.
Yeah. This is kind of a slightly unrelated, but to me, I think the wildest part of the episode, like the actual what happened in the episode that stuck out to me, was near the end where the Squidward character got offered like a bottle of wine by one of the other people.
It was like booze or something.
Yeah. And literally drinks the whole thing and gets super drunk, and you can tell that he's mad, he is fully hammered.
Yeah, he gets hammered.
Yeah, but you can tell because they specifically say directly in the episode that he drank the whole thing, and you're not supposed to take the whole thing, and then literally 5 minutes later as they're leaving the club, he's just completely fine.
He sobered up very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird to me too. I don't know. That's weird to me.
No normal person is going to handle that much alcohol that well.
Especially if it's supposedly their first time, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that scene of the SpongeBob character snapping, it's again one of those things that we all saw coming. I saw it coming, you probably saw it coming. Of him being so nice the entire episode, and then him just snapping and just just take your jackets. Which that was a weird subplot too of him having to hold jackets for these two girls, and when they come across him again, they're just can you hold your jackets for us for everywhere we go? And I'm just
yeah.
Who says that? What? Just take your jackets back. It's not that deep.
It's not that deep.
That was another thing that confused me, and further supported my initial theory of this just being a kids show. And it's I get that kids, they do understand cursing and thing, and they will curse too as well. But and they will watch shows and stuff that's that has cursing in it, even if they're not supposed to. But I just don't get who the show's for.
There's a lot beyond the language. There's also a lot of suggestive content in it that I think not a lot of younger people with less seasoned minds would necessarily get.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like they should have just picked a target demographic. If they wanted to go all the way, they could have. Or if they wanted to turn it back and just do what the All Ones Out did with his Netflix show and just make it a kid's show. They could have done that as well.
It almost feels to me. It almost feels to me that individual characters in the show are targeted towards different demographics, but the entire show is not targeted toward one single demographic.
Yeah, it's all over the place. That's the best way to describe it. It's all over the place. And ironically, in a show called Catching Up, it's not really able to you're not really able to catch up on what the demographic is.
That's a weird name too. That name didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it really doesn't. What does that mean? Catching up.
Wait, what are we catching up to?
I guess the implication is that they're trying to catch up on things that they're supposed to do as teenagers. Like the SpongeBob character, he keeps talking about this is what we're supposed to do. This is what clubbing is supposed to be about. It's implying that they're not at that stage yet of teenager, which that's the only explanation I can possibly come up with. Other than that, I don't know what the name means. Catching up. Like I said, no synopsis given by Ellis Mark himself, so I don't know. So yeah, I don't really know what else to really talk about with this. Do you have anything else to add?
I mean, not really. We've ranted a lot. It's just in summary, the To Whom It May Concern official verdict on Catching Up. It is a poorly written, mediocrely executed show by an individual that has spent numerous amounts of time critiquing other shows and pointing out things that are wrong, and yet made a show that pretty much has all of those things wrong with it.
Basically. The title of this episode is probably going to be that moment when the YouTube critic gets critiqued.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know.
Acclaimed critic
that
Ellis
moment,
Mark.
That moment when the critic who critiques bad shows make a bad show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that one. I don't know, because I play video games is the best analogy I can come up with, but it's like that situation where you're watching someone else play a video game and they suck at it and you're like, man, give me the controller, I can do this, and then you start playing and then you just completely suck at it.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. That's kind of how it is. He's seeing all these creators, TV showrunners making these shows, and he's just like, "Y'all suck at it. Give me the controller. Let me
show you how it's done.
Let me show you how it's done." And then he writes this, and it's getting ripped apart by a lot of people, except for his fan base.
I think what would be really hilarious is if if in response to it would probably be pretty it'd probably be pretty what's the word? I don't know. But what would be really funny? It would be really funny if other animation studios in response to this show started jokingly coming out with shows that had the same low quality story and mediocre execution, and just saying well, I mean, Ellis Mark set the bar, we're just following his example.
I mean, to be fair, with a lot of shows that are coming out, you don't really have to imagine it being that mediocre. But it's just when it comes from Ellis, at least those other people who are running those shows, at least they're just they're just making a show. They're not out here critiquing others and telling others how they should run their show. And I'm not saying YouTube critics like Ellis Mark, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying if they decide to make a show of their own, they will be held to a higher standard because of what they do.
Yeah, I feel someone like Ellis Mark or any critic who has spent so much time critiquing, they should at least be aware of people know that they've spent a lot of time critiquing. And so they should be aware of that when making a show and know that okay, so I should make a show that responds to these critiques that I've been making. Otherwise, I'm gonna look like a massive hypocrite.
And the fact that he's not experienced, this is his first attempt at making a show. He should have gotten other writers who like actually know or have experience with making shows. Like he should have brought a couple of them on board to like help him get his vision out. Because I do truly think he has a vision with these characters. Apparently, these are characters that he's been like had in the mind frame for like a good while now. Like several years, he's had the idea for the show, but I just feel like he didn't necessarily have the experience to like really make a pilot or like a story that's engaging enough. Like it was just like he should have gotten other people to help him out with the writing. And that's another point that a lot of people made, like in those videos, like critiquing LS Mark and like critiquing the show. Like he should have gotten more writers to like bring in more like dynamic, like a dynamic story with like variety of jokes. You could tell there was just one type of joke he was making, and barely any of them were hitting. Barely any of them were landing. So it was just like, and you could tell that it comes from a place of not knowing what he's really doing. Hence why I call it amateurish.
Yeah, I think it could. I think it's possible that could also have to do with him having the mentality of like I got this, I'll show him what's up, and just like going in completely on his own because he feels like he has something to prove.
That's the vibe it comes off. Because I will say, I don't think he's a bad critic, like he's a bad critic, but a lot of his videos does have that attitude of just that pretentiousness of just like, I could do it better. Come on, give me the pen.
It's also very rare.
This mistake you're making is so obvious a toddler could see it coming.
Yeah, and it's also very rare to have especially like shows like this that are meant to be like high quality productions. It's very rare to see them have only one writer, because obviously multiple writers means you have more people to like work on the script.
If you go back to like other shows we've talked about thus far, you know, where we brought up Digital Circus, Burr Jones, Hello Boss. If you go back to those, they have not a lot of writers, but like a couple of writers to like, you know, collaborate.
Usually it'll be like the producer of the show, or like the show's like original idea creator, and like they're collaborating with an animation studio. Like for Digital Circus, for example, it's made by like the original idea was from, I forgot the dude's name.
Gooseworks.
Yeah, Gooseworks. But it's being like it's being produced by Glitch Productions, and so Gooseworks and Glitch are collaborating with each other to make this show, and it's not like one person is trying to write the entire show on their own. Or Murder Drones was the same way, where you had multiple people collaborating on the story.
And as for let me actually double check real quick how many writers were in that pilot alone, because I know as they go on they like get more writers on board, but let me look up real quick.
There's also the fact
that I know Brandon Rogers, who's the voice of Blitz, he's like one of the main writers, but I want to see real quick when it comes to the pilot how many people wrote that.
Yeah, it's already like, it's rare enough to have only one writer on a show, but like to try and do that.
It said written by Brandon Rogers and Vivian Medrano. Vizzy Pop is also like, you know, the main animator, and she also wrote part of it. So even if it's just two people, like that makes
two people
a big
is still
difference.
Like, you gotta realize, like, two people is twice the brain power of one person.
Yeah, so right. So it's like that's the main thing. Like, get some other. I feel like if Ellis Mark were to like put aside, I don't know what the thought process was behind him being the sole writer.
I really think
I'm going to assume. I'm going to make an assumption. If I'm wrong, that's fine. But I'm going to make the assumption that it was possibly ego-driven.
I think
of him writing it alone. But if he puts aside that ego and, you know, bring on another writer, like a couple of writers, I think that would make his show infinitely better. Like, okay, maybe not infinitely, but like it would show improvement. Because like even the best writer in the world, they can't like I'm sure they can make a couple of episodes on their own, but eventually they're gonna be like, "Can I get some help, please?"
Yeah, I genuinely do think that it was completely ego driven because of the fact that like it's already rare to have only one writer on a script. This guy is completely new to actually writing his own story and still decides to try and do it completely solo. And it just kind of like in the light of all of the criticism that he's given in the past on other shows, it really just comes off as an ego driven like I can do it better sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. So that's our review of Catching Up. Overall, we give it 6 out of 10. No, not 6 out of 10. It's lower than that. For me, if I had to give it a number rating, I would probably give it a 3 out of 10. It's not a 0 out of 10 or anything like that.
It's at least a mediocre episode. Like
that's putting it like at best it's mediocre.
Yeah.
And at worst it's just incredibly boring, incredibly unfunny, and incredibly unoriginal. That's the thing about it. It was the most unoriginal thing ever. I felt like I was watching a modern day bad Nickelodeon show. Again, up until he said bitches. And just completely like derailing the demographic thing.
I know. I could have been reading the newest Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, and you could have fooled me.
No, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You gotta give him more credit than that. If you want to compare it to the movies and TV shows, because those adaptations are not the movies, but there's a TV show adaptation that wasn't very good. You can compare it to that.
To be fair, I haven't actually seen those. I've only read the books.
Yeah, but the books, they're written in a way like where Greg is essentially an unreliable narrator, and like we're going off of what he says, and we have to infer like what is he being truthful with and what he's like over exaggerating with. That's true. I think that's a good thing. I think that's like a good thing with the books, like Jeff Kennedy, the way he writes it.
Because Diary of a Wimpy Kid is told from it's told from this perspective of literally a guy's diary, so it's told in first person
of a kid, and it's like so it's like I think those books still hold up today. I remember when I was reading a couple of them again over the break, and it's like it still holds up in my opinion. And it's like Jeff Kennedy is someone who has like spent years honing his abilities, like his writing craft, his drawings got better. And I hope the same thing happens with Ellis Mark. The main point I want to emphasize is that this is not the end all be all. Like this creative property is just gonna suck forever. That's not what we're hoping for. At least that's not what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that Ellis Mark he's able to learn from this.
Yeah, that would be the ideal situation.
I want to point right now because obviously we've been dogpiling on this pilot a little bit. Yeah. But if you're watching this and you saw the pilot and you liked it, that is 100% fine. If you liked it genuinely, that is great. Like I am glad that you're able to see something in it that we're not able to, and you're able to find enjoyment in it. And I wasn't trying to call out those people in the comment section praising the show as like fake bots or anything. I'm just saying it's just kind of a thing where it's like obviously his diehard fans are going to be excited for it, but it's just going to be those who are like going to point out the flaws in it. And I'm hoping that Ellis Mark is actually able to see where he may have gone wrong a little bit.
Yeah,
at least in the eyes of us and a few others. You know what I mean?
I hope people don't go completely down on Ellis Mark and like yell at him about how like he's a terrible show writer and he should just like never do another show again and like stop critiquing other people's show. Like I hope people don't say that, and like I hope people give like actual criticism on how the show could be improved. That Ellis Mark did.
I feel like we were fair in our criticism.
Yeah,
we went a little harsh. We gave him a little bit of harshness, but I feel like at the end of the day, we tried our best to be fair and like critique. And like, what I like to do when critiquing something is give pointers of how it can be improved. And like, this is where you went wrong. here's a couple of suggestions to make it better. That's where I think the difference is between criticisms and just dogpiling on something that you just weren't going to like in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's another we could get into. We're just going to turn this entire episode into this topic now. I know,
pretty much already have.
We're already too far gone. That's another thing that like really like annoys me is when people like gets mixed up the terms criticism and dogpiling, or like the two scenarios of like critiquing something for the point of being helpful, or like critiquing for the point of tearing someone down that you didn't even like to begin with.
Like proper constructive criticism versus just flat out hate.
Versus flat out hate, yeah, exactly. That's what I want to draw the line at of like and I feel like as a creator, if you're in Ellis Mark's shoes, you're getting all of it. You're getting the support, you're getting the hate, and you're getting the constructive criticism, which by definition is supposed to be neutral. Like ultimately from a neutral base. You're not biased towards it being good, you're not biased towards it being bad. That's how I came into this pilot. I knew nothing about it. I came in with just the most open expectations. I was like, let's see what we have here.
I came in with no expectations because I learned about this from Will sending me a video to watch, and I knew nothing about it beforehand.
Basically, yeah. I didn't want to look up anything about it. I didn't want to look up people's opinions. I didn't want to know anything. I just wanted to go in completely blind, and I came in with a neutral beginning, and I came out with a very critical opinion of it. But I do acknowledge the fact that it is hard for like anyone making content who is like popular enough to where they're getting tons of comments. Like, you get your positive comments, which are always great to see, but then you also got your troll comments. So you always gotta like go through and like you can either pay attention to them or you can ignore them. That's completely to your discretion as a content creator. But if you're going to ignore the troll comments, you still have to be on the lookout for people giving constructive criticism. And those constructive criticisms, they're not going to be fun to go through. Everyone's has been critiqued before of something they've done. And it's like, you never feel good having to hear it. And it's like, I can think back of like times where I've made something and I've had it critiqued by people, of like people giving constructive criticism. Even though it was constructive, it still didn't feel good having to hear someone tell me that I did bad at something. But that's just kind of how it is. You're not going to be perfect at anything. Like the best piece of media ever, it has a flaw in it. That's just the art of human creativity.
I feel like that's one of the biggest keys to like being good at anything, just like being good at things in general, is being able to take criticism take negative criticism in a positive way and be able to use that criticism to help you improve.
And once again, let go of your ego. That ego's gonna tell you, nah, they're wrong. You're the best at what you're doing. You're doing nothing wrong. Like, you just gotta let it go, and you gotta listen to what people are saying. But at the same time, it can be tricky having to go through a bunch of troll comments. That's like, if you take what they're saying and you actually believe that you genuinely suck, when all you may need is just a slight correction, that could work in the opposite direction as well. So it's like it's a fine line. Of like a balance you gotta find. And there is no easy answer for this conundrum. It's just something, it's something you have to figure out. Like, if this podcast ever gets big enough to the point where we're getting tons of comments, like, we'll have to experience this too, of like going through some comments that might say some bad things about us, but it's just, that's just kind of what happens when you grow a fan base and you grow an audience, and like more and more people are seeing your stuff.
Yeah, every like decently sized fan base is always going to have like your blind supporters that don't know how to say anything negative, your blind haters that don't know how to say anything positive, and then like the actual reasonable people who will tell you like the actual like they'll give you like actual realistic comments.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of what it is at the end of the day. So yeah, I think how long have we been going?
59 minutes.
I think that is going to be the end of our episode. We almost exclusively talked about this.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's one topic. And I think, it's an interesting topic, to say the least, of a YouTuber who has made a show and he's critiqued other shows before, and he's very, very well known for being very critical. And when he takes a stab at making his own show, it's one that me, you, and a few other people, me and you, referring to me and Steven, that we find to be not up to the quality that we believe someone like Ellis Mark should have been able to reach, just purely based on the fact that this is something that he does for a living. Like, not necessarily making content, but like criticizing content, shows and movies. But yeah, that is our episode of that. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe if you want to catch up to another episode of
To whom it may concern. Yeah. I need water.